Skateboarding is as much or more of an art or mode of expression than it is a sport. Uh, what skateboarding has given me is precisely that, a, a form of expression that drew me to it. And in so doing, I was able to express and be who I wanted to be through it, in a sense, and establish myself within a community that were all essentially outsiders like myself. And, and by doing that, it gave me a place, a sense of belonging, and in the end, I was able to contribute at a foundational level a lot of the tricks that the entire community uses to express themselves, which again is one of the beauties of skateboarding, is that we all draw from the same pool and give it back so that others can do the same and keep expounding, very much like an open source community. There is no community I would like to or aspire to have that sense of or reverence or belonging or whatever it is that I can think of. Skateboarding is it for me. I grew up on a farm in Florida, and we didn't move to the farm until I was about 10, 11. So I saw a few skateboarders around, and I was drawn to them, I think because this idea was individual expression that did it. There was no team emphasis. It was all on you with no one standing over you telling you how to do it. So that's what drew me to it. And in a way, I chose skateboarding because of that, because it resonated with something already inside of me. My greatest influences were never the heroes or the big guys I saw in the magazines. They're just the guy down the street that I thought was awesome. And so, through adult eyes, he was just a stoner down the street. But from my eyes, he was the coolest guy ever in his aloofness, in the sense that he didn't try to be. He just was. And so that drew me, because he skated. He was the only one that skated. So how is it that I went from a farm, so isolated, I would go back and forth to school, and the rest of my time was spent around cows. My best friends were hooved. And how is it that I was suddenly discovered in making it out west to belong to some sort of elite team, which was the most elite team at the time, Bones Brigade? It was the strength of the community. It was, I would show up at local contests, I mean very local, talk about sort of podunk swap meet type of settings. Almost, I mean it's just really grassroots in the definitive sense. And it was those few people, the interconnectedness. Stacy, who founded the Bones Brigade, Stacy Peralta, who's a hero of mine, he already had a Floridian rider, and that guy saw me just go to a skate park in Kissimmee, Florida, and he telephoned Stacy and said, "Hey, there's this kid," and I was so blown away by the very thought of that. He had faith in me as an individual. He just started giving me, "Hey, little kid needs boards," and when he did that, that gave me, in a sense, some contact directly to the company. And so I started using the boards, and the next thing I know, there was no money at that time, so there was a big contest out west. And I flew myself out, or my parents flew me out there. And I went and I won the contest. And as a pro, which I entered as an amateur, I still didn't accept the money. I mean, it was so small, it was a couple $100 back then, whatever it was. But I won, and on my way back to the airport, he just said, "Hey, I want you to be part of this." And that's how it happened. So we always had, education was always really important. That was pushed into me. So I always had an interest of science and invention. We would do little things, make electromagnets, things like that. That was foundational for me, of creating little things, little lab, like do-it-yourself, erector set type of stuff. I was always like bathing in that as a kid. On the other side, I was always into sports, baseball and karate. I did that for years, and I was fairly naturally athletic, I suppose. The combination of those was perfect for skateboarding and how I drew, how I looked at it. Because skateboarding was a way, it was physical, could take it outside, but it was a way of constantly utilizing my surroundings, just jumping down curbs and over little drainage ditches, little ways to invent new ways to do things, to entertain myself, that were the leverages. It's all some degree of physics, it really is. Even the best skaters I know, they may not talk the language, but they have an intuitive sense of leverages and how there's balance and symmetries that probably graduate level physics type of thing. There is a lot going on there. Skateboarding, to me, is one of the most innovative cultures, subcultures, however you define it, that I can actually think of. Certainly within the extreme world that we all know that term, this painful term, that it has a disproportionate representation in terms of its footprint. Snowboarders, when they're doing this stuff, they're grabbing, why would you grab your board? It's locked to your feet. Well, it's because of the emulation of skateboarding. The footprint, rollerbladers, all this, even bike guys, they're doing tricks that we developed as on skateboards. There are a lot of reasons for that. Whatever it is, the physical nature of what we do, the mechanics of it, that lends itself to discovery. More so than having something tied to your feet, for example. We can start going through iterations of a trick that they could never do that because of the nature of it. So that said. Ollies. The origins of ollies, a guy named Alan Gelfand did it on vert, meaning on pools and weightless vertical walls. So when he did it, it's more of a sense of unweighting to the slight tap. And there was a punch and a momentum that went around that got him off the wall. I saw him, so that's if you look up ollie, it's actually in the dictionary, you'll see Alan Gelfand, and there's a reason for that. I was just a little kid doing flat ground, and I don't know what year it was, 80, whatever it was, 81, something like that. And I had for a long time done a really simple movement, which was just a transfer trick. I'm regular foot, which means left foot forward. And there are a ton of tricks where I needed to get to this side. It's a transfer trick. I'd been doing that since the late 70s, so that I could in turn do things like that. When I saw him do it on the wall, I'm thinking the mechanics of it. How do you get your board off the ground? How would you get your board off the ground like he did off the wall? Because I'm stuck on flat ground, not weightless. And I realized, from seeing it on the vert to getting my board up in the air, the first ones I did took about, 5-10 minutes. I started doing that. I realized that's just the same motion I've been doing for years. It's a seesaw motion. That's how ollies work. It's a punch. You stand here, you punch, the board naturally takes off this way. All ollies, or most ollies, are really just this high. That's all there is. It's just a punch and a little hop. And the real key to it was dragging your foot and leveling it out, which brings the board up.
There is a bounce to begin with.
At
that point you call it a punch?
Just a punch more than anything. Because you start it really static, so it's not so bouncy, you just punch. And you see the seesaw motion. Now guys can get really, you start pushing it, and then you learn how to bring the board up into you. But that's more of the fold and drag of, you can see how shoes, this new pair, but immediately they start getting worn from the sandpaper, grip tape. And it's the friction, drag, fold, all of that stuff that brings them higher and higher and higher. So you get guys, getting them up here, I think 41, 2, 3 inches, whatever it is the max, like world record. But it's the same basic motion, the seesaw motion. And it's what's interesting because people, interesting, is that the word? I guess in a backhanded way, people credit me with in the documentary, Stacy's Bones Brigade documentary, credited me with the importance of the ollie that gave the foundation for street skating, which is skateboarding today, all that. And to me, it was like, yeah, but it's not a big deal. It took 10 minutes, 15, half an hour. And next thing you know, you're getting them this high. And that's what laid the foundation for everything else. So in a sense, the biggest innovation for street skating is which they credit me for. It's not a big deal. The community itself is extremely innovative. One of the reasons for it is because of its basic ethos, which again is shared. I don't want to tread on anyone's territory or be unfair to them, but I speak to skateboarding, I'm a skateboarder, that it's very much like the open source community. There's something about authenticity, whereas we as skateboarders tend to be collections of people that really don't belong in collections. We're outsiders. Yet we seek a sense of belonging. And the only way you can sort of bring that, because the belonging comes on our own terms. And so the way that we stand out within this community, because we're all seeking to be respected. I mean, that's a human need, to be respected, admired, praised, whatever. And the way we do that is not through extremes. We don't have metrics such as high jump and long jump and cyclist where it's measured in time or anything. The metrics in our sort of meritocracy that determine who we are is how we individuate ourselves by what we do and how we do it. How much do you stand apart as an individual by the way that you do the stuff that everyone else does, essentially? Maybe how you do it, maybe where you do it, maybe how you recombine it. There's all kinds of ways. So there's a pressure that we, within of how do you earn respect? You earn respect by the degree to which you make yourself different. And so what that does is bring all these like-minded individuals trying to take what the basic alphabet of what we do and expand it in ways that no one's ever done before, which is the inherent definition of invention. The process that I use to come up with stuff, it varies and there's no formula. I have books and books filled with sort of templates and formulas because people are doing their best to express how do you create. But by its very nature, it's elusive and you can't contain it. You can just say, this is how I do it, or this is how the mind sort of works. But everyone's different, especially depending on the nature of what you do and what you've already got under your belt. There's all kinds of moving variables. So having said that, the most valuable, or one of the most valuable things for me and how I practice today is, I learned it when I first started studying physics, was breaking things into component form. Everything in vectors, you start breaking them apart in component form, the x's and the y's and different axes, so you can simplify things. And you don't look at the whole, you look at the sub-pieces. And that's how I've always looked at skating, is a series of catenated movements. But one thing's for sure, they're made of pieces. And so one of the things that I do is start breaking tricks apart in terms of pieces. And then I look at those individual pieces and I start to expound on all related ideas from pieces. And as they become more rarefied and branched out, then okay, you digest that, you feel that, and then you go on to another piece in another domain. Maybe work on something on flat, maybe throw it up, something up to a ledge, maybe do it on a bank, maybe do it rotationally. All those will educate you as they branch out on the sort of granularity. It actually has cousins and it has its own family trees. And when you go to create something new, again, like I say, most creations are done never squared centered, like down the line of fire. You always see them in your peripheral vision. That's how they occur. And by saying that, what I mean is go to some context or go to some area that you are slightly unfamiliar with, and you start doing what's familiar to you. But open yourself, don't try to land it, just do what's familiar to you. And something will connect with one of these branched relatives of some other sub-movement that naturally goes with it. And they will coalesce in new ways that you didn't quite expect. And that's one of those things where I talk about the peripheral vision. It doesn't happen when you're looking directly at it. It's almost always I should say it this way, that when I get away from skateboarding and think directly, I want to do this, it is rare that by the time I go out and try to film it, that image of what I had by staring right at it is actually done. It's always, I go out doing it and I realize that's not going to work. And you come up with something better just by the feel of how it's done and connecting these otherwise disconnected movements you would never see. So, some of the most impactful innovations were guys on vert who are taking it to different environments, showing how environment, the context, can change what we do. Likewise with street skaters, guys, Mark Gonzalez is a huge one. Nodis, guys, Tom Penny, were ways to take these basic movements that I had done with giving a sort of alphabet or vocabulary of flat ground tricks, that I was able to do variations very quickly of all those kick flips and 360 flips and heel flips. They took very little time and effort, really, because at that time I was working with a blank slate, so I don't give that much credit to what I did. And I mean, I'm fortunate people give that, but to me the most important things in skateboard were how to take it to different environments where I can learn from them, take from that same pool. So some of the biggest and most important advancements in some ways were how to take it to different contexts. In other ways, it's watching how some guys did even basic movements of how do you hold yourself. It's like this. Even manuals. Manuals are just holding yourself on two wheels. Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. And watching the simple technique, some guys do it like this, standing like a tree, and they don't isolate the variables of, no, you have to minimize your movements to lock it, to center a certain part of your body, how some guys did things. Watching how some guys do simple tricks suddenly opened up whole doorways where suddenly you can multiply out and take skating much further. So sometimes the very simple techniques of how you hold yourself to minimize motion, that allowed for the biggest advancements in skateboarding. The characteristics, it's funny that even in light of me getting a patent, it's definitely not because I'm smarter, or it's because I was able to communicate. I know the feel of something. A ton of guys know the feel of a skateboard better than I do. But because I could bridge it to the angles and to the basic design of something, to speak in engineering language, I was able to bridge that gap. That gave me, that's what allowed for the patent and the success of so much of what we did, not just through trucks, that's just an example where I got a formal patent, but through boards, of knowing the feel, being the guy that can understand the feel of it and articulate it in a language that turns into angles and measurements and thicknesses and densities and things like that. Being able to bridge that gap is an incredible power when it comes to the formalization of ideas and making them actually into innovative, whether it be products or tricks, something that you can grasp. And sometimes it's these very simple, being able to bridge simple gaps through expression, that is all the difference in the world. Because a ton of guys may have the capacity to create things when it comes to products, but they don't have the feel. A ton of guys have the feel, but they can't do the other. It's just the simplest bridges that sometimes make all the difference when it comes to real innovation.
So there's bridges there.
Yes.
And whether they be mechanical or human in nature, do you think you can, with intent, create those bridges, or do you think they have to happen more organically than that?
No, I think that, you can start to dissect what is organic to the point it dissolves into nothingness. So said another way, that everything, the creative process to some degree is directed and analytic. At the same time, it's not completely that either. So it's just a mixture. So that's, I should say, the most creative or spontaneous people, well, they think ahead as well. You start dissecting any particular one quality and it will dissolve under you. So it's a combination of recognizing where voids are and then going after them. In my view, the role of innovation in society itself, I look at society so much through the lens of skateboarding because it's been my life for so long. I have a bad taste in my mouth where sometimes certain qualities are optimized and marketed in a way as we're different or we're more extreme. And to me, none of that is innovation, it's polishing. The role of innovation often is, it comes from recognizing voids and also bringing together synergies from other ways of looking at things that other people don't see, to make things simpler and more straighter lines to it, more minimalist. If anything, making things simpler rather than more complicated. Apple, I guess Jobs was good at that. And so the role of innovation in society, I understand that complexity often leads to simplicity in a way. You can start to see how that wraps around. But in general, it's just filling voids and making straighter lines to make things more, it's efficiency more than anything, more than adding complexity. It's just the one thing I just have to express by being here. It's not even a formalized, it's just thinking out loud. Is as a kid skateboarding, just desperate to not be judged but to express myself. That's what drew me to skateboarding. There are a lot of outside pressures saying you're gonna go nowhere and throwing away your life and you're gonna end up a bum. I was made to quit skateboarding for just that reason. A number of times, there was always pressure. And then to find myself here at the Smithsonian, with you guys taking interest in what I've done, it is the furthest extreme from what I ever thought would happen, and the greatest honor I could think of.
So, on behalf of the Smithsonian's Lemelson Center for the Study of Invention and Innovation, it is such a privilege and our pleasure to have you here sharing your thoughts with us at the Museum of American History. I mean, and to be up here on this venue, on top of the museum, looking out across the mall, and to share these ideas has been really special for us. And we appreciate you being here and being so open and thoughtful with us today. So thank you very much, Rodney. It's been great.
Oh, thank you. It's been my honor.